Keefe D, we know, has confessed to being involved in the murder in his book, On the Art of Dialogue, on Vlad and other platforms, but has since recanted and pointed the finger at Reggie the Rat Wright Jr.
Prove that I orchestrated this. You know what I'm saying? Your key witness orchestrated this. They top witness is the lead suspect.
For almost 30 years, one man held the truth about who killed Tupac Shakur and stayed quiet. Then he got arrested. And suddenly, sitting in a jail cell with nothing left to lose, Dwayne Keefe D. Davis opened his mouth and pointed his finger somewhere nobody expected. Not at a rival gang member, not at some random stranger. He pointed straight at the man who was supposed to be protecting Tupac that very night.
The former head of security of Death Row, who had testified before the grand jury that ultimately indicted Keefe D. in the murder of Tupac.
His name is Reggie Wright Jr., the former head of security at Death Row Records. And according to Keefe D., he was not guarding Tupac. He was setting him up. Let's start from the beginning, because this story only makes sense once you see how long Keefe D. has been talking and how much he has changed his story along the way. In 2008, Keefe D. sat down with federal investigators as part of a proffer agreement, a deal that protected him from prosecution in exchange for information. He admitted his role in the killing. He said it again to Las Vegas police in 2009. Neither agreement was meant to put him behind bars.
An ABC News exclusive with the man charged in the 1996 murder of rapper Tupac Shakur. Dwayne Davis is speaking from behind bars for the first time. He insists he's not the killer.
Then he kept talking anyway. Interviews on Vlad TV, appearances on BET. And in 2019, a published memoir called Compton Street Legend, where he laid out in detail how the gun got into the car and how the shooting happened. For years, he told this story like a man who knew nobody could touch him. He was protected by his own past deals. He thought the door was locked behind him for good.
He articulated a whole lot in his book on various platforms to his involvement in the murder. So he's gonna have to be as vocal and as detailed as he was in him basically saying what his involvement was as he is as into alleging anybody else's involvement.
Then in September 2023, Las Vegas prosecutors walked through that door anyway and arrested him for first-degree murder. The man who spent over a decade narrating his own crime suddenly had to defend himself against it. That is when everything changed.
Keefe D. Davis says the night of the murder, September 7, 1996, he was in Los Angeles, 300 miles from the Las Vegas intersection where Tupac Shakur was gunned down.
Prove that I orchestrated this. You know what I'm saying? Your key witness orchestrated this. They top witness is the lead suspect.
The defense pointing to someone else, Reggie Wright Jr., a former cop and security guard for record mogul Suge Knight, who was driving the car Tupac was in the night he was shot. With the shooting were made under duress and for money, claiming he did not write his own memoir and was fed information by police.
I shouldn't have said nothing. You know what I'm saying? I shouldn't have said nothing. And I'm innocent, man.
In his first jailhouse interview since his arrest, Keefe D told ABC News he is innocent. He said the words plainly, "I ain't killed nobody, never did ever kill nobody." He claimed the memoir was not even his own writing, that he only gave the author details about his life and the rest was invented.
Then in 2023, a breakthrough when prosecutors charged this man with ordering the hit, the only person arrested for Shakur's murder, who now tells ABC News authorities have the wrong man.
I'm innocent. I ain't killed nobody, never did ever kill nobody. They don't have no evidence against me. Came and put me in Las Vegas.
But here is where it gets interesting. He did not just deny his own involvement. He named someone else as the real architect behind it all. Keefe D's legal team called Reggie Wright Jr. their top witness against him, and also their lead suspect. He labeled Wright Jr. and his security team mercenaries. In his telling, the man hired to keep Tupac alive that night had every reason to want him dead.
One of the first people to go and testify in front of the grand jury, basically saying that, Keefe D and the people that he were affiliated with was the ones who were responsible for the hit on Tupac Shakur and Suge Knight. But let me give you this. I'm going to show you
Reggie Wright Jr. did not stay silent. He told reporters it was heartbreaking to keep getting dragged into this. He said he was there to protect Tupac, not harm him, and called it one of the worst days of his life when he found out what happened. He also reminded everyone of something simple. Keefe D confessed to this murder long before he was ever a suspect against Wright Jr. to the LAPD in 2008, to Las Vegas police in 2009. Publicly, for years, before anyone accused him back.
The defense pointing to someone else, Reggie Wright Jr., a former cop and security guard for record mogul Suge Knight, who was driving the car Tupac was in the night he was shot. Wright has denied any involvement and has said it bothers me because I was in charge of possibly protecting this young man.
So who do you believe? A man who has confessed to the same crime in 3 different decades, or the man he is now accusing only after getting locked up? There is also something worth knowing about Reggie Wright Jr.'s own history. He was previously convicted on unrelated charges involving drug trafficking and money laundering. That does not make him guilty of Tupac's murder, but it does mean he was not simply a clean security professional with nothing in his past. And that fact alone makes Keefe D's accusation land a little differently for people following this case closely.
Keefe D. Davis says the night of the murder, September 7, 1996, he was in Los Angeles, 300 miles from the Las Vegas intersection where Tupac Shakur was gunned down.
Prove that I orchestrated this. You know what I'm saying? Your key witness orchestrated this. They top witness is the lead suspect.
The defense pointing to someone else, Reggie Wright Jr., a former cop and security guard for record mogul Suge Knight, who was driving the car Tupac was in the night he was shot.
It also helps to remember why Tupac was even in that car in the first place. Hours earlier, he had gotten into a brawl at the MGM Grand with a young man named Orlando Anderson, who happened to be Keefe D's own nephew. Keefe D has said for years that he supplied the gun that night out of family loyalty to avenge that fight. That part of his story has stayed consistent through every version he has told.
So Tupac wanted to go to the MGM Grand. So what do? They walked over. And so this starts off where people are watching Tupac win money now that they're at the MGM Grand. Better place for a high roller gangster to be seen rolling high.
To understand why this accusation against Reggie Wright Jr. does not just disappear, you have to go back to that night in Las Vegas and look closely at what actually happened with security. There was a meeting that day. Tupac's team was told not to carry weapons. Frank Alexander, Tupac's personal bodyguard, had just come back from vacation to work that night. At that same meeting, Reggie Wright Jr. was reportedly furious, but not about security. He was angry that another bodyguard, Kevin Hackey, had been paid $10,000 for advising on a film set money Wright Jr. felt should never have gone outside his company.
We caught a ride with Reggie. This is Frank Alexander saying we caught a ride with Reggie. He took us out to lunch to TGI Fridays. When we finished eating, Reggie started bitching about Kevin Hackey, the bodyguard who replaced me when I was on vacation. So this is Frank's first night back, right?
After the meeting, they went to lunch together at a TGI Fridays. 2 separate chances for the head of security to make sure his own bodyguard had a radio, a way to communicate. Anything. Frank Alexander walked into that night with none of it. Later, at the MGM Grand, while Tupac was gambling, Frank Alexander needed to reach Reggie Wright Jr. He had no working communication device. He had to use a public payphone a couple feet away from Tupac just to check in.
In Vegas, he gonna be guarding Tupac. They'd gotten into it over money. Kevin, who had worked with Reggie long before he hooked up with Suge to form Right Way, when they were both policing the streets of Compton, managed to hook up something with the producers of Gang Related, the movie Pac was working on in August.
While Frank Alexander stepped away for barely a minute, Tupac was no longer at the table. Now here is the part that should make you pause. Earlier that evening, a second bodyguard named Michael Moore had also been flanking Tupac, 1 man on each side. Tupac had 2 layers of protection walking through that casino.
That Tupac had fired Reggie as being his company, as being his personal security, not the security for Tupac, but his personal security. Saying that Kevin Hackey had got paid $10,000 for offering his technical advice on the shooting scenes. Reggie felt Kevin had undermined his authority by taking the 10 grand and still taking money from Right Way for bodyguarding.
But when it was time to head to the boxing match later that night, Michael Moore was suddenly pulled away. According to accounts from people close to the situation, Reggie Wright Jr. personally called Michael Moore and told him to step back from Tupac and to leave his gun behind. Frank Alexander did not know any of this was happening. Tupac himself noticed Michael Moore was missing and asked Frank to call Wright Jr. and find out where he had gone. Years later, Reggie Wright Jr. gave an explanation for all of this. He said Tupac never wanted security flanking him because he had no fear and would never agree to it.
Reggie the Rat Wright Jr., he's worried more about Kevin Hackey getting $10,000 for actually doing a job outside of what security was, basically helping the people on the set of Gang Related with the shooting scenes, right? So in essence, he's mad. He's actually mad about that. But listen, check it out now.
But that claim falls apart the moment you look at footage from just days earlier at the MTV Video Music Awards in New York. Tupac is seen holding a walkie-talkie in his own hand. Michael Moore stands beside him with an earpiece in his ear. There were 2 guards on him that night too, fully equipped, fully connected. So in New York, Tupac had full security with full communication. In Las Vegas, on the one night it mattered most, his bodyguard had no radio and his second guard had been quietly pulled away just hours before the shooting.
And prosecutors say Davis incriminated himself in his 2019 memoir, Compton Street Legend, and in this on-camera interview.
You said the shots came from the back. Who shot Tupac?
The keeper for the code of the streets. It just came from the backseat for him.
Davis now says his previous admissions connected with the shooting were made under duress and for money.
Suge Knight, who was driving the car when the bullets came through, has said publicly that he had 2 of the best guys assigned to Tupac that night. He also said he personally called the venue and asked for 5 more security guards before the fight. He was told there was nobody available. 2 of his best guys, pulled apart, no backup approved, no radio for the 1 guard who remained. If this was simple bad luck, it is an extraordinary amount of bad luck stacked on top of itself in a single evening. This is exactly the pattern Keefe D's defense is now pointing toward in court, not as conspiracy, but as negligence. The idea that the people meant to protect Tupac created the conditions that allowed him to be exposed.
Followed years of fan-driven theories that an intense rivalry between East Coast and West Coast rappers sparked the fatal attack on Shakur.
And I'm being held against my will. I'm supposed to be out there enjoying my twilight. God got my back, and God will see me through this.
And Reggie Wright Jr. is not the only name being pulled back into this case. New court filings have resurfaced claims that Sean Diddy Combs once offered $1 million for the deaths of both Tupac and Suge Knight, a claim Keefe D first made to investigators back in 2008 and 2009, long before any of this became public.
When they came down and talked to him when he was in custody, and this dude, that's why I call him, his name is not Keefe D no more to me. Anybody come over there to bomb first, that is the biggest snitch in LA County history.
Diddy has never been charged in connection with Tupac's death and has repeatedly denied any involvement. But the timing of these resurfacing claims, right as Keefe D fights for his freedom, adds another layer to a case that keeps growing more tangled instead of clearer.
Kurt Burrows said he was aware of the $1 million hit that Diddy had allegedly put on Suge and Tupac.
Separately, former Bad Boy Records president Kirk Burrows filed his own lawsuit accusing Diddy of being tied to Tupac's killing, describing years of jealousy and tension between Diddy and the rapper who once threatened to overshadow him completely. None of these claims have been proven in court. Keefe D has every incentive right now to spread blame as wide as possible, and Wright Jr. has every incentive to deny it completely. Neither side is a neutral witness to their own story.
Kurt Burrows just filed a lawsuit against Diddy, basically claiming to know about the $1 million hit that was put on Tupac and Suge, basically saying that Diddy had got rental cars for some guys from Harlem to drive out to New York. He also mentioned Von Zip, the person who Keefe D said he had got the gun from to ultimately shoot Tupac Shakur.
What makes this different from every other Tupac theory is that this is not internet speculation. This is happening inside an actual courtroom with an actual trial date, where these accusations will eventually have to be tested under oath instead of just shouted in interviews. That trial was originally set for February 2026. It has now been pushed back to August 10th, 2026, after Keefe D's defense team said the amount of new evidence was simply too large to review in time.
He said he was fed information by police, right? Basically saying that Greg Kading had fed him information in regards to that, right? And then him implicating now, indicating that Reggie Wright Jr., like I said, was involved with the assassination and the orchestration of the assassination of Tupac Shakur, right?
So for now, the question sits exactly where it has sat since 1996, except now it has a courtroom attached to it. Did Reggie Wright Jr. orchestrate the death of Tupac Shakur, or is he being used as a convenient scapegoat by a man who has nothing left to lose? Keefe D spent over a decade confessing to this crime in his own words, on his own terms, to anyone who would listen. Now that those words have finally caught up to him, he says someone else pulled the strings the entire time.
If you look at that document and you know those names that's in that document, oh my God. Jail, prison in state of Nevada is more safer than him in being on the streets in LA or in Nevada or in the penitentiary.
Maybe he is telling the truth for the first time. Or maybe this is simply the last move left for a man running out of ones to make. Courtrooms are not built for theories. They are built for evidence. And evidence is exactly what this case has been missing for nearly 30 years. What makes this moment different is the timing. Keefe D is not speculating from a YouTube studio with nothing on the line. He is fighting for the rest of his life, and the name he chose to drag into that fight was the man who was supposed to be standing closest to Tupac that night. Either way, in August 2026, for the first time in 30 years, somebody is going to have to answer for what happened that night in Las Vegas, under oath, in front of a jury, with no book deal and no YouTube channel to control the story.